So for this video, we're going to be breaking down a hindquarter and showing you how to cut it into individual steaks, what cuts are good for roasts, and then how to take the bones and eventually make them into stock. Before that, we're going to talk a little bit about knife safety. We've been using the Benchmade meat crafter knife. It's been great. It's very versatile. I probably put it through, 100 animals this last year. Everything from alligators, domestic hogs, rattlesnake, quail, snipe, pretty much everything. Great knife, very well thought out, very versatile, and stayed extremely sharp. I've only had to hone it. So really good, really happy with it. Cutting. There's some things you can do to guard yourself against injury when working with knives. Several different kinds of cut-proof and cut-resistant gloves. You can utilize a meat hook instead of your hands to lift back cuts, muscle groups, and move meat around the cutting board. What you're going to see me do is definitely not in line with a lot of knife safety tips. I'm going to be cutting towards myself a lot. I'm going to be cutting really close to my hands, and just doing some things that, with years of practice, do whatever you want, but I'm not going to go out there and tell anybody to do exactly what you see. So this is just how to break down a hindquarter, but primarily we want you to be very safe when you're using these knives, because very dangerous, but a good sharp knife is a safe knife, because that means you're not struggling through what you're trying to cut. If it can cut cleanly and easily, you're going to be a lot better off than if you're hacking at it and trying to struggle through it. So keep your knives extremely sharp, keep them clean, and guard yourself if you choose against any cuts or injuries. Hey, today we're going to be going over a couple of different ways to break down a deer ham. Sometimes they're called the haunch. It's the rear leg, rear quarter, hind quarter. This would be without the shank or leg if the deer was facing the inside leg facing up. So you can see here the top round, or what would be called the inside round. I always try to look for the femoral head and the kneecap when I'm breaking these things down, and just draw a line in between the two, imaginary line. You can find that seam, and it just comes apart from there. So the first thing we're going to do is trim any unnecessary or unwanted tallow off. Try to get as close to the meat as you can without getting too far into it. So all the muscle groups, the bottom round has a different grade. The way the meat runs, you can see here that the eye round has a really straight grain in comparison to the bottom round, which, it's at a different angle. So keep that in mind when you're cutting it. That's a good way to identify this muscle also. Flip it back over just for reference. This is going to be your sirloin tip, top round, bottom round, eye round. So you can see right here, there's going to be a seam where the bottom round ends at the sirloin and the femoral head. And you can just find the seam with your hand right there, and it's going to come right apart. I like to use a little leverage with the body right there and just let the knife kind of gently glide through the muscle groups where they meet, and you'll be able to get a nice exposure and see them. So that's your bottom round, and that's going to be your sirloin tip right there. So where the sirloin meets and comes down, you're also going to find your tri-tip, which sits on the end of your sirloin tip. And again, on a larger deer or elk or moose, he's going to be a lot larger. But you can peel that right off and trim that up, and it makes a really nice tender steak. So that'd be your tri-tip. So working back again, we're just going to go ahead and remove the bottom round. Where it meets the eye round. And then you can peel your eye round out. Top round, there's a gland right where the it's where the bottom round and the eye round meet, and it's going to be left in there. If you seen these out, but you should always make sure you trim out all these glands. Very bitter flavor, and you don't want that anywhere near your dry pile. So again, once you hit the bone, you can expose it along the edge. And then you have your top round. And then you're left with your sirloin. Just cut that right over the kneecap. So that'll be your sirloin, what's left of it, where the tri-tip would come down onto your sirloin tip. That's a very tender piece of meat. The tip makes a very nice roast and nice steaks. So we'll trim that down for later use. We're left with what would be the heel right there. And again, we'll trim that off for the grind pile. Anything that's left on is going to go to stock, so it won't go to waste. I do like to trim the viscera off as much as possible, anything with that blood left in it. So that's another breakdown there. These will get trimmed up for final use. right, so here we're gonna be able to see the entire ham go from one whole piece into roast and finally into steaks. The entire ham, if it was looking up towards you, you'd have your sirloin, tri-tip, sirloin tip, top round flat, top round, eye round, bottom round, and there's the little gland that sits between the eye round and the bottom round. And you go down to your heel, and all that connects right here. Where you got a nice shake. You can take out the tendons, keep it on the bone, roast the bones, and these would get trimmed up into the sirloin tip roast. Eye round, I like to treat these just like a tenderloin. Top round, this is the bottom round. You can see how the grain is different than that of the top round. So it's at more of an angle, whereas this one's going to be straight. And then the steaks you would get from these would be sirloin tip steaks, eye round steaks, top round steaks, bottom round steaks, sirloin steak, and then stew meat from the trim on all these. Works really well.